Hello YouTube. I wanted to do a very quick review of a really cheap item today. I'll show you the close-ups that I normally show. This is it's a tripod hot shoe mount. Let me show you the close-ups. It's got dual screws for tightening, so you can use them. Be careful with it, but it's solidly made. So you can use the bottom screw to secure this onto your hot shoe, which I'm showing you now. And the top screw tightens up for whatever is on the top, whether that's a flash gun or another camera or whatever. What I wanted to do was show the difference between a really high quality camera video and a fairly cheaper or a much cheaper digital compact camera video. So I've got the Sony DSC-HX30v. What I'm going to do is mount that using this on the hot shoe of a Nikon camera and then take the same video from both cameras and then do a split screen test so that you can see the difference in quality. Now, for normal sizes, my contention is that this fairly cheap camera will probably give video that appears to be as good as the expensive camera. Of course, if you zoom in and if you do extreme close-ups and all that kind of thing where detail is really fine, then you will see a difference. But in terms of point and shoot and ease of use, this is fantastic. But I thought it might be interesting to compare this to a more expensive camera. I did compare this with the previous model, which was the HX9v. So you can have a look at that video. Click here if you want to see that. But comparing it to a proper good quality camera, I thought would be interesting. Certainly if you're doing things on your own, as I tend to do, this is much easier because the autofocus on this is really good. On a digital SLR, I have to do a lot of work to get the focus really crisp and accurate when I'm shooting myself because I'm doing this alone. But with the Sony, I would just put that on a tripod, hit record, and I know it will focus on me, and then if I move something close to the camera to show, then it will pick up on that as well. Whereas if I'm doing it from a digital SLR, I have to stop, refocus on the item, and then continue shooting. So this is really a very easy one-man operation camera. So let me take some footage and show you exactly what I mean. Okay, we're back. Now here's a slight problem. I can't actually see what I'm doing here because the camera's just pointing at me. I'm having to hope that I'm in shot. So if I'm cut off, then you know, that's just how it goes. But I'll check in a moment anyway. So this is the camera I just shot the introduction on. It's the Canon, which is great, using the kit lens, the 18-55. So you'll see the quality from that, or you've just seen that. What you're seeing now is the quality from camera. And to make it fair, what I've done is I've set both of them to 1920 by 1080, so 1080p, but I'm actually going to crop in slightly to 720p because there's a slight difference in the angle of coverage. Not enough to make the test invalidated. You'll still be able to see the type of quality. The comparison will still be fair, but it will just get rid of certain issues on the extreme edges. And certainly on video, all I'm interested in is the central portion. Now, one thing that might be interesting is for me to put something closer to the camera and see which of these will focus best. Okay, as I move in and out, you may not see anything, I don't know. In fact, that's not really a very good test because I've got the Nikon on manual focus now. If I'd put it on autofocus, continuous autofocus, it would be moving in and out. I've already tested. The continuous autofocus on most modern DSLRs isn't really that good. But on the Sony, I think it's fantastic. And I may move in closer in a moment just to show you. So what I'm going to do now is do a split screen. So you'll see the video side by side, and then you'll be able to compare it directly. I'll do a voiceover while that happens. That's coming up in a couple of seconds. But I'm not going to tell you which camera is which. They're both set to automatic white balance. So there will be differences in colour. I'm not going to correct that in post-processing. I'm going to let you see how it comes out of the camera. Certainly it might be interesting to see what happens if I tweak the colour on both of them to make them more similar. So I may actually show the side-by-side videos doing that as well. But here comes the side-by-side, and I'll do a little voiceover just to explain what you're seeing. The first thing I should point out is that I'd actually set an incorrect setting on camera B, which is why it's coming out lighter than camera A. If I'd set the equivalent setting on camera A, I think the lightness would have been the same on both. Now, in looking at this on my monitor, They look fairly close. There's a subtle difference in colour, absolutely, but if you take into account the lightness issue, they'd probably be very, very similar. I think it's nearly about a stop of exposure difference, in fact, that I dialed into camera B, which I'd forgotten. I simply made a mistake. So that's the first thing. The next thing that you can see if you look very closely is that there does seem to be a difference in sharpness. You view for yourself which you think is sharper, but I think there is certainly a difference in sharpness, but I don't think there's enough really to worry about it. And I think if you viewed either footage on its own, it would look fine, particularly if we lightened up camera A. I've got these synchronized as much as I can so that the action is occurring at exactly the same moment. There is a slight difference in the angle of view because I had the one camera mounted on top of the other, so one is slightly higher than the other, but the difference isn't massive in terms of the angle of view. What I just did then was move my glasses towards the camera to see about the autofocusing, but because I'd turned the autofocusing off on the Nikon, it's not really a fair test. But it does point out that with a digital compact camera, you would expect it, or I would expect it, to continue to focus even if you move in and out, and that's one of the big pluses for me. The focusing on continuous with a digital SLR doesn't impress me personally. I don't think it works very well. I don't think it's smooth. It does work to an extent, but it doesn't seem to work as well as even some of the simpler compact cameras. Okay, well, what we're going to do now is we're going to take a look at the next clip, and I'm going to zoom in closer so that you can see even more of the detail. Now, this is the identical footage as before, but I've just zoomed in so that you can see the differences more clearly. I think there's a slight difference in synchronization on this one. I was copying and pasting, and again, remember that the lightness of camera B is because I made a mistake. If I'd applied the same setting to camera A, the lightness would have been virtually identical. I didn't notice that I'd made the mistake until after I'd recorded these, which is why I haven't redone it. It would have taken me too long to redo the whole thing. Okay, well, you can see enough there, I think, to make a difference. Honestly, I'm slightly surprised at just how much difference there is. Camera B is clearly better, certainly sharper. However, if you were to play this at normal size, I don't think you would have any problem viewing the footage on camera A. I think you would consider it perfectly acceptable. Certainly I've never had any problems with it in the past, and although there is a difference, it's not really a massive difference. And of course it depends on the size of screen you're playing it on, and whether you there we go, we're just doing the focusing thing, and whether you do the 720p output or you leave it at the default, which is usually I think 360p on YouTube. So there are lots of different factors which will come into this when you're viewing the footage. But in terms of looking at the Sony versus the Nikon, yep, I'm going to say it now, the Nikon certainly wins, but really not by much. And when you consider that the difference in cost, depending on the model and the lens that you're getting, can be as much as 6 to 8 times, I think that the digital compact, the Sony in this particular case, does a great job, an absolutely great job. Okay, so could you tell that camera A was whatever and camera B was the other one? What I'm going to do now is reveal to you what the A and B stood for. Camera A was the Sony, that's the DSC-HX30v, and camera B was the Nikon. So there you have it. It's a little test. You tell me what you think. If you have any comments or questions, please leave them. I'd love to hear from you. Give me a thumbs up if you would for the video, and why not subscribe while you're here? I'd love to have you join me on future reviews. Thank you very much for watching. See you soon. Bye.